Okay, so this is the regular monthly meeting of the Trumansburg Planning Board. I'd like to call it to order. And it is we moved it from our normal time to tonight because of the holiday schedule. So first order of business is to have the people who are present at the table up here introduce themselves. And that'll be our sort of our roll call. So
Sarah Kennedy, Planning Board member.
Tom Myers, Code Officer.
Rick Geiger, Chairman of the Planning Board.
Jessica Giles, Village Clerk Treasurer.
Michelle Matrani, Planning Board member.
And Joe Kuchar, Planning Board member.
And Mark is not with us tonight. He had another commitment this evening. He may be here late if he gets done early, but we have a quorum, so any action we need to take will be fine from that standpoint. Minutes, we're going to defer till after all the substantive business is done, just so that we're not keeping people here late because we're going over minutes. So the first item on here is going to be opening a public hearing for the minor subdivision application on 20 King Street. We determined at our last meeting that the application for that was complete and ready for review, and that's why we were able to schedule the public hearing. And so that's what we need to do tonight. And I'll ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on the King Street.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion of this now? Okay. So the public hearing is open. Is there anyone here who would like to make comments about this minor subdivision application at 20 King Street? Is there anyone online who would like to make official public comment?
There is not.
Okay. So there being no public comment on this, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing on the 20 King Street application.
I move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so the public hearing is closed, and now it's time for us to decide whether to grant this application. It's complete. It doesn't require environmental review because it's a minor subdivision and it's more or less a ministerial act, and ministerial acts are excluded. They're called one of the kinds of type 2 actions under seeker. So that means there is no environmental review here on this because there can't be a very substantial impact on the environment. What we decide tonight, which is basically to draw a line on an existing map, and that's our action. So, is there discussion of this after you've had a little bit of time to look at it? Anything we would like to say? Applicant, anything you'd like to offer for our consideration?
You folks know more about it than I do, actually.
I doubt that. But after assuming this gets approved, the way it works is then basically we turn things over to the professionals on the village staff, who then shepherd it through whatever the processes are that are required by the county clerk and get things recorded so that it's official on, you know, the records in the county clerk's office as well. So, would anyone like to move that we approve this?
I would move to
So-
make a motion to approve the minor subdivision at 20 Queen Street.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Michelle, to second that. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so it's approved.
Thank you.
And I'm just say, I don't know if we'll have it for you tonight, but stay in touch with our clerk and Tom, and we can get all that taken care of for you. All right,
Thank you. There is no big rush on this, so
okay,
that's fine.
all right, that's great. Yeah, well, sometimes we just like to take care of it when it's in front of our minds, you know, so we'll do that tonight.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good luck.
All right, the next item on here is the planning board discussion of the 5 McClellan site plan application. We have done everything that needs to be done. We've had the public hearing, we've made the environmental determination. And now it's really just up to us to continue to review. We did get some additional submissions right after the last meeting concerning the historic designation and concerns that were expressed about that. And I know those were circulated and I know they were available to the public as well. So we're at a stage now where we can talk about this and then make a decision. So what do people think? Anything applicant would like to add that's appropriate at this point?
I think we submitted the documents, we submitted a document describing our approach to historic preservation.
Right.
Clarified that in the hearing. We're anxious to get going and keep moving the goals in the area.
Right. Okay. Well-
I looked at I went into Tom's office today and looked at the documents. And I saw all the specifications. You can really look at everything down to the door hardware that they're using. So I think it looks very well thought out and I'm excited for that work to begin.
Yeah, good.
And I'm feeling comfortable too. Well, I appreciate, you know, the response to the last meeting and then the provisions and yeah, I feel good about the work.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you too for the additional information about the historical preservation piece of this and the care, you know, that the conservatory is obviously taken with respect to that. And that was extremely helpful to my thinking. So. Okay. So is there a motion to approve this application?
I'll move to approve.
Second,
Second.
okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, application is approved. And.
You can sign them.
Okay, so, yep. We'll take care of that tonight
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Okay. So. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Which is 1 East Main Street. And on that one, we have gotten to the point where we're at the public hearing stage. And so we'll take care of that, and then after the public hearing, we'll decide how to proceed. Okay.
Great.
All right, we need a motion to open this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing on 1 East Main Street.
Second.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is open. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak about materials that have been submitted for the site plan review application at 1 East Main Street? Say we have someone who would like to speak to that. 3 minutes.
Hi, I have two things to say. One is, that's a gorgeous piece of property. It was Village Hall for a while. And it has such an opportunity to contribute to the poor. And I think it's an amazing job of putting together something that is both amenable to the street walking public and to whatever's happening in the building. Only thing that popped out to me is that it says signage, but I can't see what kind of signage is on that. So my hope is that you will please make sure that it's not neon nighttime signage, which would really affect that entryway into the neighborhood. And not on that topic, I want to let you know that I did do extra work and I did recreate the document that got lost last month. So I'd like to provide it for you for your thoughts. Not on this subject, but I gave a copy to Ezra and I have a copy for you if you would like. Thank you.
Yeah, please. All right,
No, that was on.
no one's online. Phil, in terms of the signage, so that's been raised. Are we thinking of neon lit signs or?
It's undecided because there's no tenant for a space at the moment.
Right,
There is electrical that is provided to the area where it says signage. So there is the ability for a lit sign under the code and, you know, municipal law exists for the tenant under the square footage that's allowed.
right. And there is a sign ordinance too.
Yeah,
that,
sign ordinance addresses internally lit signs. Their sizes are allowed sizes are much smaller than externally lit signs. And you'll see most of the signs in the village are externally lit. You know, there's a few exceptions like Atlas's sign. They got a variance for that
Sure.
quite a while ago, but
Yeah, I think we left it open ended and just future proofed it to go through the next phase of approval. When
Yeah.
the sign is there. I would note that it is on 2 street faces. And so I think that does have some impact on square footage, perhaps.
Right.
For what's allowed, but
So, and I'll say that as a member of the Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Revision Committee, I've spent several hours over the last 2 months talking about signs.
oh, great.
And so, as thrilling as that may sound, I'm learning a lot, but I'll just say that, you know, currently we just had a change to residential zoning and commercial zoning is being looked at and signage is part of that. And so I don't know that it really matters, but I'll add that is being looked at now and there may be new commercial zoning laws that get voted on by the trustees at some point in the next year, and that may impact the current sign code. There could be potential changes.
Yeah, you know, if
I
the
don't know how
applicant
that
gets going
relates.
with the project before the new laws are adopted, whatever they are, it would still be under the 2012 ordinance.
Yeah,
Or it's not.
I only bring it up, I
2023.
don't know how this stuff works, Tom, but I only bring it up because I
Yeah.
don't know, like if say you went to all the work to design the sign, but you didn't actually
Mhm.
get it up and then the trustees voted to adopt the new, I don't know what would be granted,
Yeah.
how that all
Yeah, the
works. So
timing probably
I
is
just wanted to make Mr. Farr
something
aware.
to keep in mind. And,
Yeah,
you know, I bet you Phil will do his due diligence looking into when there's a copy of the new
Draft.
sign ordinance or
Yeah.
draft, yeah.
yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
with that committee, everything's reasonable.
Very.
That's the other thing about, you know, the site plan review application is that, you know, we have, you know, certain things that we think about but it's all encompassing and, you know, part of what we do is we rely on the fact that there's other parts of the zoning ordinance that kick in that aren't a part of the site plan review application. So there's the variance process, you know, there's special permit application process, there's sign application process. So there's other pieces of this that, you know, fit into sort of make a mesh network out of how it all happens. But the site plan review is typically the very first sort of official step in setting things on the right track. And so that's what we're doing. And the sign ordinance will kick in when it's appropriate.
Great, no, we're not asking for any variance at this moment for any type of sign.
Okay. Yeah, and if you do, and you know, there'll be a process for
There's
that.
a before and after.
Right.
Horizons. And
Just like if your tenant wants to do something else, you know, that requires a setback variance or something, that'll mean that, you know, a different process.
I will mention, obviously, well, one of these is polished and tasteful and for the community. Or whatever it is. Yes. Union Street.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, Union Street is the same as the front. I mean, they're similar entrance portals and design. But I was just saying that we want to make sure that it looks great to the majority of the public. Not no question.
Yeah. All right, is there further public comment or comment from any of us or the applicant?
I was going to, when the time comes, wherever you're ready to talk about that I handed you, the public opinion
Right,
that was submitted personally to us as a suggestion.
yeah,
that
okay.
we like.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get that on the record. As well as if you want to just quickly sort of highlight what the changes are on the other submission.
Yeah, so I guess I'll revert to the parking, it's just a parking lot. Design,
Okay,
and so I will. The best parking lot design. Might be. Easiest one to read might be C6.0.
okay,
And. The handout that also has the original parking lot on the second page with some red writing. And so that's also very good comparison to our submitted version and then the suggestion. And the suggestion is a rough draft, so it's not to scale. But the observation was made that if you look at the topo, it's a very steep entrance to the parking lot that we designed because it's farther up the hill. And it actually a 4-foot difference. So the hill gets very steep right there. And so it would not be desirable for cars to come in on that steep angle or out on that steep angle as they might slip or collide in icy weather. And it's problematic. And so if you notice the difference, it was a great suggestion and observation that by moving the entrance closer to the green space area, you will see on the topo, which is the second page, that it's more level with the actual parking. So you can kind of see the elevation runs down the center from 661, 662 down. And by scooting that over, you're down in the 658 range, which is 4 feet lower and is commensurate with the majority of the parking lot elevation. So it's much safer, and it's much better for traction and better for inclement weather. The other opportunity that it provides is that if you notice our main entrance into the green space from the parking lot, in our old design, we have parking spaces that block that entrance from the parking lot. And so this particular draft design, hand draft, also allows for a free open walk through into the green space from the parking lot. You'll notice that it's not blocked by any parking. And also that would be able to curb down the ramp, and so it's, you know, ADA compatible. And so the idea here is that we will probably rearrange this parking lot for the final submission, but it will have the identical components of EV charging stations and, you know, basic shape. It's just, we have to dial in, because we got this a couple of days ago. We have to put it back in and really detail out the exact parking space and shape. But it's gonna be the same perimeter approximately. And relatively same planting areas, all those things will be similar.
Okay. And you said this was in response to comments you got from,
No, we've just been working in collaboration with a few people that directly with us, with vendors and people with our company, and with the neighbor, specifically the Ferrari family that,
Sure.
you know, has some great design ideas and has been very helpful with real world applications. They, you know, use that space quite a bit.
sure, they've got a pretty good incentive to.
So this was their suggestion, which, you know, I think is very valid and very fine and makes a lot of sense. I think we're gonna try to adopt these suggestions in the final design.
Where would the accessible parking spot go in that case? Is that,
Well, so with this particular lot, the accessible spot isn't required because it's under 20 parking spaces. In this particular design, if we did the ADA spot, it would most likely be right at the top. It would be the closest spot to the sidewalk. And the ADA spot, I don't know how many ADA spots are available in the local area or on the street. Obviously, this lot only has approximately 16 or 17 total spaces, so it's gonna be pretty packed, but certainly open to your opinion on that particular, what the better usage would be, whether to reserve one ADA spot or to maximize the parking lot, just because there's a lot of space to begin with.
Right.
There is one on Union Street right outside your side door. I don't know if that can be counted or not. I know that a lot of communities, they're working their comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinances are trying to eliminate parking requirements. The feeling now is that if you require X many parking spaces, they're gonna fill up. But if you don't have a requirement to have more spaces than are actually needed, it'll encourage more foot traffic, blah, blah, blah.
That's a great, now to say that, we do have a ADA compatible spot right outside of the side door,
Yeah.
which is the closest spot to the building, actually.
Oh, yeah, that seems ideal.
And with our parking lot, it is very limited, the number of spaces and capacity. And it's not required to provide.
Yeah.
So unless if you're open on that, then we would defer our choice, but if you have very specific opinion, well,
Well, it's helpful to know that that there's a designated spot that's literally right beside.
You couldn't be
your
more
door.
convenient, let's put it that way,
Right.
unless you parked on the sidewalk.
Yeah, yeah, which is a good reason to have put that door in there.
yeah, yeah.
That's what it's really-
I'm not sure on the utilization rates of the
Right.
spots. I don't know if there's any studies on actual utilization rates.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other comment.
Sure,
Are we still in the public?
we are, yeah.
So I was supposed to say my name is Vivian Rose and I live in the village of Trumansburg on Pennsylvania Avenue. And
Vivian, if you can make sure to talk right into the microphone, so it's.
I will talk right into the microphone.
There we go.
Did that work?
If you want to turn different, you can turn the microphone, won't mind.
Thank you. And that is that in in many of the site plan reviews, I noticed that I've been reading on your website, that the assumption is that people will drive there. And what I noticed in the village of Trumansburg is that there aren't a lot of places for people to put their bikes. So in any plan, including this one, if you make the assumption that people are gonna walk or they're gonna bike, that leads to some different kind of amenities in the stow your vehicle, like a place for your boots or your coat, or a place for your bike, or et cetera. So that's an opportunity here that could be a model for all the rest of the folks along the street. Would be great also for the TCFA, because traffic from their intended events could really impact that neighborhood. So anyway, thank you.
Just a comment on that. Oh. But the joke was we made the slippery hill because the collision. It was an intention. I was gonna say there is a bike rack in front of the building currently that is available to the public. But I think works very, very well for this project. But I do agree that having more bike racks in the village is a good idea.
Other thoughts? Questions?
I walked down there, as I was walking by, so there was some comment about the garbage area. Did that? So I'm looking at the new. It moves up a little bit or not? No, it's in the same. Looking at the newer idea versus page.
Yeah, it would be similar as the old one, it would just scoot down approximately. 5 feet perhaps. It would push, see the EV spots?
Yes.
Graphed?
Yeah,
When we do an EV spots, we generally will do a 5-foot buffer in the center where the charger goes. So that you don't have the cars too packed together to be in between them, plugging them in with cords. And so it's a lot like an ADA spot where you probably do a 9 or 10 foot parking space. And then you would have a 5-foot divider in the middle that you can access directly to the charger.
Yep.
So this does not depict that in the handwritten. So you can imagine the dumpster, the trash and recycling enclosure will have to flip down about 25 feet from the corner.
okay, thank you.
So I'm just trying to visualize what the process is going to be now with changing the curb cut, in order to
Well, we're
accommodate
gonna
this.
rip out perfectly good granite curving and some new sidewalk. But it's a step
Yeah, okay.
back to make a better decision long term.
Yeah. Yep, okay, well, that's, yeah, appreciate that, and I had noticed that just watching the trucks pulling into that. They were having trouble navigating that too, because it's, if they're coming up the hill and. Then there's you can't really go to the left because of the utility
The
poles.
snow really helped. Noticing,
Yeah, right,
we've been test driving the entrance and it's not as ideal. As we
Yeah.
hope, and this actually puts it almost level with the parking lot, which would be much safer. And as you know, our intent would be to continue that sidewalk and curbing on the other side that goes all the way up
yeah.
to the corner.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think the other thing about moving the curb cut and, the entrance, is that with pedestrian traffic, that goes on to Cayuga Street and on to Congress Street, that corner up there is already fraught. It's a really weird intersection, especially when you add in the conservatory's kind of non-entrance situation right now. And I think moving it down the hill will definitely make it a safer kind of thing for pedestrians and for drivers to be able to see pedestrians who might be coming around the corner and stuff. So,
Yeah, so that's our last minute, rework.
okay.
Thanks for sharing that, and I agree with what, you know, that's my major thoroughfare up to my house. I walk up and I appreciate your comments, and I also appreciate your willingness to submit some new thoughts, and it's actually gonna cost you a little bit of work, because you're gonna have to adjust what you just did,
Yeah.
but thanks.
All right, further comments or thoughts, questions? Okay, I think, well, we can talk about whether we want to close the public hearing at this point. I mean, this recent submission would certainly justify doing that. Because it's a change, and so, but it also seems to me that, you know, we've had access to the evolution of these plans, you know, for quite some time. And that this suggestion actually comes from a kind of offline public comment and response to, you know, concern about that. My own personal inclination on this would be to go ahead and close the public hearing at this point. I don't think there's any reason to think that there'd be comments anymore, that would help us in our decision making. But I'm also open to the other side of that for sure.
I'm gonna offer that should the final submission of the parking lot be presented to include completely something different, you could decide that there's
sure.
not a new application in essence. Do the whole thing again, right?
We could, that's right.
So,
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's enough flexibility to, you know, decide if there was something, you know, significant enough, that we would just have another public hearing.
a small mouse,
Yeah.
for
right.
example, being put in there.
Yeah, we will finish this maybe next week or so, and we will email it to you
Mhm.
with an updated version. And if perhaps you wanted to approve a concept, it's the same nuts and bolts with a curb cut change and a very small alteration. I mean, certainly if it's an egregious material change, you feel.
Right, well, we can do one of the things that we have open to us, and I don't mind, you know, saying it's in the ordinance is, that we can, you know, go ahead and make a conditional approval. And in fact, we may want to do that in any event because of the status of the floodplain plan that we'll get to. So yeah, we could make it, you know, make this conditional on, you know, bringing before us the final plans for the curb cut, the change in the curb cut, and moving of the accessible parking spot. And I think, let's see, was the EV on the old plans too? Yeah.
Yes, it's
Oh, okay,
same components,
all right,
in the same shape.
yeah.
I mean, I defer to, I mean, in terms of your knowledge, Rick, about the way to proceed, but I just want to say that it seems like the overall stance of the project is really good and strong, and like the flexibility to just improve and to try to have a project that helps the village and adds to the village, and so overall, that's how I feel about what's being done. So I'd like to do things that help facilitate the project, because I feel like it's going in a good direction.
Well, I think it's appropriate to have a, you know, a motion if anyone wants to offer it to close the public hearing and get on with that decision making.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
For a second,
I can second.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, public hearing is closed. that doesn't mean that as part of our conditional, a conditional approval that we couldn't provide for additional hearings if there are, you know, substantial changes, so. All right, so here we are. Let's see. Tom,
I'm
where
gonna
did-
hop in just with a
Yeah,
bit of illumination, clarification. You know, we went, submitted materials to the county for municipal law 239. They made a couple of small recommendations. They're not even the strongest requests, but here's a suggestion, something might make it better. At this point, the changes that are talked about in the project would not affect that approval. They are really happy with the way the drainage works, the retention, the landscaping, that sort of thing. If there were drastic changes in that, it would have to go back and do their start over at 30 days. Basically the same thing for the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation. They've I'm not sure what the employee's status is, but people looked at it, both said, well, it seems fine. One asked me to submit documents and maybe I'll get back to you with the response I got. So we could do something conditional waiting on word. I'll contact them to get, okay, yes or no, or do you want 30 days or whatever to do that. But any changes like moving where the curb cut is, realigning the parking lots, they're, you know, wider, narrow, that would all not affect decisions from these two important governmental bodies. So that's it.
Thank you.
thanks, Tom. Okay, so we've closed the public hearing. We've already talked in brief about the environmental review, which isn't required in this case either, because it falls under one of the exceptions in the state statute that has to do with the footprint of the building not really being altered. And then it's in that size of a building, which is not over 4,000 square feet of usable space. It's a type 2 action under seeker. And that flips it to the village environmental ordinance, which has its own little list of things that are, you know, special case for Trumansburg kind of things. And it's negotiated as part of the law that municipalities can have their own kind, you know, special provisions for things that are covered in the environmental statute. And one of the things that they did was to talk about, because the thresholds for building size and number of parked cars and things like that are covered in the state statutes are massive. And so there are very few municipalities that would ever reach those levels. And so municipalities have adopted their own thresholds. And in our statute, you can see what that is on our ordinance. But this also doesn't fall within the need to make it into a type 1 action. It's still a type 2 action because of its size and the square footage, and so and also the fact that it isn't changing the footprint. And so if it's not an expansion of an existing building or new construction of a non-residential building, then it becomes a type 2 action under the village ordinance as well. So, I mean, I know that's kind of a long-winded rambling explanation, but the two things again work together, and they both point to the fact that this is a type 2 action. That by definition then means that there's no further environmental review required. Now, that said, that doesn't mean that the site plan review standards aren't still going to apply to this. And we will make sure that, you know, it meets all those standards. And it won't mean that if things are done there that require variances and things like that in the future, or permits from the DEC or other things, that doesn't mean that there won't be, those things won't be required. It just means that this stage of the seeker review, the state required review, that we have fallen below the threshold that requires a more extensive review. At this point, what we've got is part one of the environmental assessment form. We've already looked at that as part of whether the application itself was complete. And it didn't raise any flags in terms of anything that as a site plan review matter we needed to take up. So there, the environmental review we've also covered. And so since we've covered our notification requirements, we've covered the environmental requirements, we really are now in, and we've had the public hearing, we really are now in a position to take final action or conditional final action on the site plan review application itself. Sorry about that.
That's good. That's good for us.
But that's where we are. And that means we can have some discussion if there are other things that people want to, you know, have to say. I will say it's great to get a carefully thought through and I would say, you know, open to ideas presentation. We don't always get that. And so I thank the applicant for doing that. And it certainly made it a much more of a pleasure to review than some of the things we've had in the past. So thank you for that. But what other things are possibly on your minds before we decide to take action? Well, I'm told that when there's silence, people like to fill it if they have things to say.
I'm actually just was looking at the EV charging elevations and stuff.
I will note that when we're bringing that EV charger, the diagram that's in there is not the actual charger. That is a smaller charger than what would be used. The chargers that we have spec will actually be a wider 2-port unit, and what they put in as a diagram is a single port lower voltage. So it will be a larger than with 2 ports, much like a gas pump almost.
Will that have its own lighting or will it rely on the ambient lighting?
No, so we have a lighting plan in there that which will be very similar regardless of parking lot changes. Where we have 4 light posts for the parking that are dark sky, blind. I think, you know, they're 20-foot high poles, and they shine directly down with dark sky fixtures that will light the entire area. One of them is very close to the charging station. The EV charging station also has lights on the unit itself, and it's a completely different electrical service. So there's 2 options. One is a 560 kilowatt, and the other is a smaller version, which is 240 kilowatt. And the difference is one may charge a complete charge in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. The other one might charge an actual car in about 10 minutes. And there's no 560 kilowatt chargers anywhere in the area. And so we'll see what type of service we get. The larger charger may be up to, 1,500 amp type of, 7 or 8 homes worth of electricity in order to make it. So we'll have to play that by ear.
So will this be a single car charging unit?
So the charging unit's a dual port. So basically, if you look at the design of the parking lot.
Yeah, the new design. Yeah.
Plans, You can kind of see, and I'm using the marked up hand version, but in the old plan, you see where the EV charging station near the road. And you can see it has that 5-foot strip between the two spaces. And so the charger sits up on the curb and it faces that 5-foot walkway strip. And it has a port on each side, so for the
I see.
left and the right. And I actually think in the revised plan, by moving it down towards the enclosure, I feel that when you pull in the parking lot, you'll see it right there. And you'll drive right into it. And I also think that it will fit better being away, you know, as it stands up relative, I think it'll be more pleasant for the site next to the enclosure versus over near the road anyway.
Will the new curb cut require any kind of rethinking on the drainage and stormwater issues?
No, I mean, we have the exact same drainage plan and the exact same perimeter of parking. For the beginner, it's really, the water. Will come into the curb cut from the road, as you know, the water comes down the hill.
Yep.
And so, you know, you may get some water entering the parking lot, but the whole parking lot will go directly to the two drains that are designed in the lower quadrants. That enter into the underground system, it's the identical system.
Yeah, I will say when we had one of those really rainy days a couple of weeks ago, I took a walk down just to see how the water actually moved. It was raining hard enough that you really could see the stream coming down from McClellan, you know, down the hill. And what actually happens with most of the water is it goes to not your side of the street, it goes to the other side of the street because there's a crown on the roadway. And it feeds into a storm drain that's down by the bank. And so actually there's not that much water, at least as it's graded now, that is running up against your curb and going down and going into that drain down there. So I don't, you know, I don't think there will be that much water that it will be going into that driveway there. So. Okay, well,
If everybody's quiet, I'm super curious about the proposed fireplace. Outdoor fireplace. In the previous drawings, you could see that what I thought was a little stone wall. And now C 1.2 with the EV chargers that are not what it is, but and you know, I don't think this is gonna have a lot of bearing either way. I'm just curious sometimes.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's a nice addition that was put in by the design team that corresponds with the green space and the patios. I think it's designed to be a smaller version of some of the outdoor larger versions you may see in event centers. A nice example might be the Organic Farms Inn exterior, it's very large outdoor fireplace that might be similar to this with a little bit different design, but very similar. And it's a natural, you know, outdoor fireplace.
Yeah.
That accents the patio. So yeah, I think it would be a nice space for a tenant to do a lot of different things. And it really gives me, I guess, sky's the limit. I think it's very versatile space. And I hope it attracts the right type of tenant that we're all hoping to have.
That's what I was curious about. I know you spoke about that when you first presented about what you would, you know, what you foresee in the space, like a bakery or maybe retail, or what do you think it's best for, or do you?
Sure, I really think, you know, kind of a market that also does food and possibly, you know, different things. It could be a restaurant. It's very easy to do a kitchen conversion on the interior because it's a one-story building. It could be any type of retail because it has basement storage, which is the exact same size as the first floor. So there's just a ton of back of the house space that could easily have all types of inventory or prep work for what happens upstairs in the customer contact areas. The building possibly could be divided into multiple tenants to be smaller, but I think our preference, due to the fact that there's only 2 bathrooms and they're kind of segued in the back, that we prefer to have a single tenant. And then the other interesting part about this building is that from having the front entrance being able to open to the outside is an interesting element for, you know, anywhere from a microbrewery to a restaurant to retail to, you know, a supermarket. I think there's. I don't know. What do you?
That's exciting.
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know either, I hope that we can get someone that's really desirable and quickly, I'm sure that's what you're hoping to.
Yeah, well, I think this project will actually run through this coming summer, and it probably won't be fully planted until possibly the end of the season in 2025. And then we'll most likely, you know, explore open houses and, you know, bids for the space. And ultimately, I think we are very intent on finding the right tenant, more so than just getting it ready.
That's great, that's good to know.
So we'll spread the word.
Yeah.
It's available.
So,
I wanna add some. I wanted to add that the notion of these being fast charging EV stations is really exciting, and as we all know, I think the village is putting in additional fast chargers, and there's already, I think there's slow chargers at the town hall, but that is an attraction for anyone visiting the general area to come and be into the village because they can have access to that. So sort of with for all of the people who will listen later.
Lots of hits.
Yeah.
All right.
something certainly historically with the backspace at that parcel is that there was a lot of public use, public parking. Well, mostly parking because it was just empty lot. The drawing and all the great plantings and stuff in the fireplace, they give it a very park-like atmosphere. Where I think with most of the village thinking of it as a public space from the parking lot, might think of that also as a public space. Do you see any issue around that or not?
I hope it's an inviting space
Well, it looks very inviting.
to the public. We designed it to be the green space because we felt the parking wasn't set up correctly with the, you know, site and the building, and we just thought it could be something much better. We did make sure that we have the entrance to the green space. As you can tell, it's not accessible directly from the sidewalk on the street. That you have to, you know, kind of enter into the parking lot area to enter into the green space or enter into the building. And so again, I think obviously it will be a private real estate that a tenant will use with certain safety and whatever usage they need it for. But at the same time, as inviting as possible to everybody that walks by and drives by.
This issue came up when Atlas was in front of us to do their outdoor dining space back by the creek. And there was concern about access to that from their plan was only access through the actual entrance to Atlas. But the concern was, well, what about people who decide to walk around or go around after hours and party back there and then things like that. And but they came up with some ideas about how to deal with that crowd control kind of.
Yeah, we have a lot of commercial space in a lot of high density population areas.
Yeah.
And as an example, you know, we have a parking lot in front of Wegmans that tends to have a lot of cross traffic to get to Wegmans through one of our sites. In one project, we actually put in stairs, you know, right through the back and sidewalk to the front to try to, you know, go with the flow what comes natural to the pedestrian flow and really invite people to naturally cross in a safe manner and invite people through as it's good for business. And I think there is a difference, of course, between, you know, hanging out and partying or something that may not, you know, on off hours versus just strolling through the morning and walking from one end to the other. But again, I think that's a great question, and I don't want to cross those bridges when we come to it, but I hope it's an inviting space to people that they do want to be attracted to go through. So,
Definitely looks inviting. I like the list of plant species in the back. There's some really neat stuff.
and we know, and on that note, there will be some dialing in of the plantings. There's maybe a little bit too much going on, and we really have to get a little bit more of a design build process when we get into the plants themselves and, you know, have things kind of ebb and flow appropriately instead of just, you know, throwing everything in with no rhyme or reason. So I think there is some a little bit of simplifying and a little bit of non-material changes that will happen when the time comes.
Probably Jonathan showed you the redo of the old Cuga Inn on Gigantic Boulevard, where Gail, I think her name is, the owner, planted just lots of everything.
Yeah,
And it's, the town did want a visual barrier, and it's a visual barrier, but everything's like really too tight now, even
Yeah.
after 3 years or something.
yeah, I mean, first, you know, that's a lot of opinion gets worked into what you like to see. And, you know, there's certainly an opinion of mass diversity of plants. And for me, personally, or what we're thinking with this project is to have a wide palette of diversity, but also have more of a structured, stately flow to the plantings, a little more higher density of, you know, similar things, instead of just having it more obscure and all of this stuff everywhere. So yeah, but I think either way, and you know, they're all beautiful.
Yeah.
Some might appeal a little more to this person versus that person, but as you can see, the intent is, it's not a large space, but there's a lot going on in a very small space. And I think overall, the back of the building is kind of a little more exciting than the building itself in a lot of ways, but. So, looking forward to building.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you all for your careful consideration of this. Shall we have a motion to have a this approved conditional on getting the required approval from the DEC and the county? Is that fair?
We have the approval from the county.
We have the county, okay, but then, so the only other thing would be to get the final stamp of approval from the DEC. And I guess also,
And final
that-
plans that reflect
yes,
this drawing?
right, I guess we'll say also conditional on this, maybe help me out a little bit.
The final plans for the parking lot are submitted, are in keeping with your vision presented at this meeting.
Yes, great, how about that?
Great
That's
work.
good, that's good too, and that, no, I know, I think that's good.
Is that enough?
Yep.
So the condition of that and pending the final approval from the DEC.
DEC, yeah.
I'm just a little hesitant on the DEC stuff, because they could say, nah, you don't need anything, and maybe
That'd
that's
be-
final approval. Okay,
Yeah, how about final action?
yeah,
Okay,
thank you. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, the approval was the sticking point for me. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if they take no action, that's an action. So-
okay.
All right. So someone needs to move that now.
I'll move it. I'll move for conditional approval
Okay, as
as stated.
the clerk just read back
Yes.
to us. Yeah, great. And is there a second for that?
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes.
Thank you all.
Got it. Thank you.
Enjoy the process.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you like a few extra copies? Documents, or are you gonna take?
Well, are these gonna be, you probably just need to replace some of the pages, right? Although,
I was gonna email you. The provider.
Okay.
Provide for you.
yeah. Well,
It one set, anyway.
yeah, but we don't need multiple versions of the revised until we have the final.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think, like 3 copies at that point. Everybody doesn't have to have some kind of funds and stuff.
And would you like any of these or any weeks? Section.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need them. No.
Oh, and we can keep the ones.
We've
Yeah, we
got, we've got
Yeah.
these that can be available to
Yeah.
people. Yep, okay, good.
We want you to keep the service berries though as part of the.
That's it. Well, if there's
We
any,
recognize I have no ability to ask you to do anything.
kind of making this up as we go.
They're just delicious.
I
They're
can love
delicious.
feedback, and if you see an exterior planning, or you think,
Oh, that's.
we provided some different examples. Or if there's specific plans that you think would work better.
I was being tongue in cheek, but they are great berries and the plants are, the plants.
Well, no, yeah, please give us the feedback. No.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you. Okay, so last item on the, or last substantive item on the agenda. Is subdivision application. From Mr. Mealy.
Stand up.
Yeah, we need
If you can hear
that.
the
My
mic.
first minute here.
Yeah, right.
My name is John Mealy. I reside at 4 Washington Street. I'm a lifelong resident and I'm looking to divide a section at a piece of land on the end of Sunrise Terrace. And I'd like to divide the north section. It would be on the left side going down Sunrise Terrace, but from the right-hand side. Where south side, north side would be separated from the south side.
Right, that is depicted. On, let's see.
There's a little sketch in there. If you wanna,
Oh, yes, okay.
it's a tax map with the explanation on it.
Right. All right, and so. Divide the north section from the south section located at the end of the cul-de-sac. Okay, so there would be a line drawn then where at an existing extension of an existing line or
Okay, there is did you make those smaller, that one page I could show you, but there is actually conformed lots, but yeah, it would be most likely I don't think I would take half of the cul-de-sac. I would just go what it says 115 feet, I believe, but I don't, I don't know what page you're looking at there, so.
Here's here's a copy of the submission,
Yeah.
so you can refer to that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sure, yes.
Oh, is it?
From
We know the
Congress.
Okay, it's where that
Circle at
we
the
got
end
it.
of Sunrise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
And then the south property
yeah.
is here. He wants to make them too.
Okay, it says 93 feet, but it would be 115 if I recall my map that goes all the way to the end.
So just an extension of that line is what you've got in mind.
Yes,
Okay, so I'm gonna just. Mark that in there, so. that I can see it.
Which line, the 93,
Yeah,
the 93S, just extend that to the
So-
east
Like the
side.
Right, it's
north
that-
side of the street.
yep, the north side of the street, basically, we'll just that line, we just continue to the property line. The larger property at the end of the cul-de-sac.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, well, okay, what we have to do first on this is to, get it in a form that we can then, have a public hearing. And so there's some things that we need in addition, that are specified actually in the ordinance. I think this is pretty clearly a minor subdivision. But we can probably make a conclusion on that. Based on what we have here. But let me just go to those provisions. All right, we need copy of covenants or deed restrictions that are intended to cover all or part of the tract. An actual field survey of the boundary lines and the tract, lot lines, proposed lots, etc. This is on, just so you know, it's in Article 4.
It's down this.
I made a read it. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
you know what these requirements are. Before we can open a public hearing on it, we need to be able to say that we've got the complete application.
Okay.
So that'll be your next step, basically. This looks very basic. It's just barely not a lot line adjustment.
Yeah.
Because it does result in an additional lot. And if it didn't result in an additional lot, then Tom could approve a lot line adjustment. But because this is going to actually create an additional taxable entity that will have to be recorded at the county,
Yeah.
we have to go through this process.
Okay.
And we've got to have, these materials in order to do that. So that'll be the next step. If you can get those to us as soon as possible.
Okay.
I don't know what your timeline is on this, but it'll take some time to get a survey and, get the stuff on the survey that's required. But at that point, then we can work with you to get a meeting scheduled with a public hearing.
Okay. The survey part, that's easy. I'm a little bit confused, but is there like I know what you, how many pages are these? What, I don't understand that part as far as getting the other paperwork together. I understand, is that just a survey, but what else is this section, whatever you said?
Yeah, okay, so it requires like part 1 of the environmental assessment form.
Okay.
Also has to be filled out. And Tom can help you with that.
Thanks, Tom.
And the addresses of the owner of record of the subdivider, set forth clearly. A plat map, title block showing the proposed subdivision name. Those kinds of things, if there is one. All on-site sanitation, water supply facilities, have to be identified.
You could talk to Dusty and get him to lay that over a tax map. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, the only sort of official thing we need is a survey that shows the things that are
No, I understand.
specified, and Tom can walk you through that because we've done this lots of times.
Okay.
And once everything's together, it'll go just like the first item on our agenda, 22 King Street did tonight.
Okay.
And he was here the last one, so don't
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
big talk.
All right, and like when the next planning board meeting, when would that be? It's third week, so 16th or 23rd. I don't know if it's a short week, the first week of.
Yeah, it would be it's the fourth week,
Okay.
fourth week of January.
It's
will
the
be our-
23rd.
Yeah, which will be our next meeting.
All right.
And if that poses some kind of a problem, we can try to, work with you on that too. But that's a regular monthly meeting.
Mhm.
We would just, put you right on the agenda, and then at that meeting, then we could set up a date for a public hearing.
Okay, so,
So we're talking about being into February, I think, before we can make this decision. Yeah.
okay, well, it's me a lot to think about tonight, and I'm learning how this system works here. I will look into the situation. I'll speak to Tom probably for Christmas, in the next week or so, and get that one part we just discussed about filled out, and then I'll call Miller's up and.
Yeah.
That.
Most of this will be very straightforward. The key thing is the driver for all of this is making it official for purposes of assessment, for purposes of taxation, for purposes of water bills, all that stuff. That there's a new lot, and that legally creates this sort of, sphere of activity and information.
Okay.
And that's why you have to do this.
Okay, and you mentioned earlier that if I brought in something earlier, if I wanted to get in, but you have to wait till the 23rd, but if I brought something earlier, you could have this thing go through quicker, or it's just, we're talking actually February when.
Yeah, I think, I don't see how, I could see us, yeah, I'm reluctant to change the 23rd because that's already pretty early in the month, for purposes of January. I could see us trying to move our regular meeting in March, or no, I'm sorry, in February, up a week or two. Because we'd be the 4th week of February, and I'm not sure where that falls, but and that way we could get you a little sooner if that kind of time.
Yeah.
If it, a couple of weeks makes a difference.
Yeah. Well,
We
okay.
can try that. But yeah, there's some steps that you have to take here.
Okay.
And they just take time. The main one is, getting a public hearing in,
Okay.
because we have to give lots of notice of that and,
Well, this sounds good. Thank you for educating me on this whole process here, and look forward to getting this information to you folks and.
great.
There. Is there anything else that you guys might want to?
Nope, not at all. There is a copy, I'm sure, of the subdivision regulations in the clerk's office. If you want to get the relevant section copied out and stuff, you can just check the stuff off.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, thank you so much for your time, and you have a great evening.
Great, thanks very much. Let us know if we can help you as you're going along.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yes, we're going to take a brief pause here while we collect the minutes from the last meeting, and then that'll be our last element of our regular meeting.
Now, these only show a space for me to sign.
Have like,
But my,
Jessica
here.
always
Yeah.
lets me sign it, that she has.
Yeah.
space that she lets
Stuff that I want to know if it's still.
Right.
it's probably,
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay.
I'm not even saving it because it's my, I'm just
Okay.
saving it.
We
There's
use
so
it
much
here,
paper.
we don't
It's so-
let it go to waste. That's Ren.
That's.
ELA.
Yeah, we can make sure that this is made a part of the record.
That's I think it's ELA in like middle school or sixth
Yeah.
grade, right?
Yeah,
That's-
yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
They,
Right.
all they do when they get to the holiday, they like.
Okay.
So
Ren's playing volleyball. She's really into it. So she's been.
Trimsburg's good, right?
Yeah,
They have
they
a
are
really super
pretty
good
good.
team. in
Yeah, her
volleyball.
team is, she's in 8th grade, but her team is 6th grade. Penelope's done with soccer. She does varsity soccer. She'll do like pickup games.
All right,
Kids, like
So
the boys and
I
boys and
always
girls.
coached when I was a guidance, and I just,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that the sports are good for the kids.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like-
yeah.
Like,
I was
on-
not-
Glad you did.
Yeah.
No, it's.
On a
it's,
team and
always helpful,
navigating
and
the
plus
social
it
dynamics.
helps us,
Yeah.
the
cut down on the
connectedness.
amount
If
of
it's a
time it
good
takes to,
team and a
know,
good group, it can be really
people put
It
things on
going
their
and
hands.
nice and.
A lot easier.
And it can also, if it's not a good group, it can present challenges, but it can also help developmentally navigate that, because you might end up on a work team someday that is dysfunctional or
That's
whatever,
right.
so it's all good.
Yeah, it is. It's all good experience. It's true. Yeah, I especially in my Penelope, her soccer team really is like. the friend. That's,
Yeah, so that's neat.
she's not like very I know she's not. The best player on the team, let's put it that way,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter, she really does love it, and she loves the
That's
game.
what I mean, yeah.
It does start to get a little frustrating. That's a general. She's. It starts to feel like that it is emotion.
Mhm.
But it's still, but it's good to learn how to deal with that kind of like.
Yeah.
Those
Right.
feelings too. You know what, I actually have them on my
I read them
phone.
this month, yeah.
I did not read them though, I'm sorry.
Well, that's good.
So
We
somebody's
we
making
love it when
corrections.
people.
Okay.
come to meetings.
Yeah, well, and that, the October.
You gotta really get weak, so I spend the time, don't
And it was for November, it was
Yeah.
November. Okay.
Oh, it's, yeah.
We want to correct you, Jess.
you?
Me too,
Thank you.
good night.
Thank
you.
I told her that we can make this a part of the public record.
Fantastic.
Okay, it's try to recapture what she had written before, and that at at the last meeting, she, did verbally, so.
Yes.
This is supposed to be basically a reiteration of that, but in written. So,
And as much fun as it would be to review the last meeting's minutes, I would sort of like to vacate myself. But I would like to make sure these surveys get officially signed and all. Do you need to notarize them, Jess?
Nope.
Nope.
We'll
Cool.
take care of that. If you give that to
Okay.
us. We'll
And
just,
I have some mailings, prepaid mailing stuff from the applicant's attorney, so you can
Okay.
just get them back to me and I can send them
great.
your way.
Okay.
Tom, before you vacate, can I just wanted to ask you a couple quick questions about the Sunrise Terrace, because
Okay.
I heard that, I assume John's gonna come to you. And I didn't want to ask this in front of John. I don't know if it's relevant or not.
We are live and recording.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. It's good that it's, but I didn't even want to alarm him, but it seems like there's a junkyard on that property, but I don't know for sure because I can't tell.
It's
from the-
not that property.
Okay, it's a
I'm well aware
different,
of
it's a
it.
different property, so it's, because I
But it
was,
is a Milty property.
I was
But it's
concerned that there was
Archie
a,
Milty Trust, which is still in probate,
Okay.
although that's starting to churn out. I'm sure there's an official.
I just didn't know, when I
Yeah.
walked down there and looked, I was concerned that we're gonna be voting on subdividing a parcel that has like a junkyard on a portion of it, but that is not on this property.
That's
And the
great.
other concern I had from a prior planning board activity is that I was trying to look at the wetland overlay maps in that area, and I looked at them before the meeting, and I can't tell again, with what I have here, how close that wetland overlay district is to that parcel, but.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I can show you or take a look, print something so you can see the village wetland overlay map has, if you have any portion of your parcel in one of these districts, the whole parcel is included.
And it's very close, I think.
So
Again, I
it
was trying to-
requires
yeah.
people to go through due process, even if there's a tiny corner of your.
So I just didn't want to, I wanted to bring that up with you because I know he's going to come to you, but I didn't want to, if it was irrelevant, which it is, the junkyard is apparently irrelevant. But I didn't wanna
Right.
get-
And as far as the wetland overlay goes, that does not affect subdividing a parcel. You can subdivide it as long as the size of the lot is compliant.
Okay, thank you for sticking around to answer those questions.
well, yeah, and you're right. It is very close here because I can remember from the subdivision application that we had for the larger lot. there, That, there was the boundary was right there.
Yeah.
On the edge of the woods.
Yeah.
basically.
And that junkyard, for instance, is right in it.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah, and there is a
It's
car.
not
I
sinking
mean,
out of sight
I
very
could,
quickly.
yeah. He's
There used to
got
be a bus in there.
just a
No,
car and a
I
couple
cut my
boats now.
kids down
I didn't
there
see a
a
bus.
time.
Yeah, I still didn't want to run a lawnmower through there.
No.
Okay, thanks for staying to
Sure.
answer those. Appreciate it.
Okay.
You all have a great rest of your meeting. Good night.
Thanks,
Thanks for
thank
your
you,
help.
Tom. Thanks for your help.
Don't freeze.
Yeah, it's been a busy time for everyone.
I had our firefighters walk through the field today. That's very exciting. Well, actually, it wasn't exciting. But
That's good.
it was a little.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like that's probably pretty much the last thing you will do there until the
Just
road
about.
is dedicated.
You know, there's a bunch of loose ends to tie up, and when you have a project that size, that can end up being a lot of stuff, but. And they're talking about, I can see in February, so.
You was motivated for that plan.
I'm so not paying attention right
Good
now.
night.
Of course, they sell,
Yeah.
yes, go on.
That was a real haul. That
I
was
like
a haul.
that cartoon.
You sure
Next to
did.
my mentor and-
You sure did. I was just talking about that today, about, how we often don't even have meetings, and then I was thinking when it was intense.
I would, you would have gone through that without Rick and
That's true. Matt really helped a lot at the beginning.
I did say.
Yeah.
I made some, I'm just was adjusting the header, basically, of the minutes.
Okay.
I needed to correct
All right. Has
the
everybody
first one.
had a chance to look at it? Oh,
and
yeah.
I
Okay.
liked myself. So
Look
I
at
have,
that.
oh.
Okay. All right, so let's see. The actions were. Okay, so. Anybody have any corrections or revisions?
Only that Joe's name was misspelled in the board members present.
I noticed that earlier today and I forgot. Thank you for bringing that up, sir.
I just had to glance.
Where did I see that? It's when you see,
And there's a
Everybody wants to
period
put a
after
T in it.
Mark DeVoe's name.
I was gonna remember
You
this.
got that, okay.
Good catch.
Yeah.
I did notice
Spelling
that
my name right.
this afternoon and I forgot.
The minutes for November 21st. 2001.
That was a lot of business. That was good.
Certainly.
Well, I think, yeah, but I think that could be new business in the sense that, I mean, I could report out, but so we have moved on now and been discussing the commercial zoning. And looking at the, downtown core and setbacks, and moved into lighting and signage and been on signage now and continue to look at that. And it is amazing how long it takes to have the, but I think that within the next month or it might be, if the planning board wanted, I think it would be appropriate to make an invitation to Ben Darfler to maybe come to a planning board meeting and kind of summarize, you know, and share thoughts from that committee. And if he didn't want to come, I could put something together, but Ben is just, I find him to be really knowledgeable and he puts a lot of effort and thought into it. And, you know, and I do think that, there's value in the planning board being aware of the conversations and the drafts and being able through that awareness to be able to have some planning board members to comment and to share with the committee thoughts. So at some point, like I had that thought this afternoon, I looked at our agenda and but I mean, there's plenty of downtime, but maybe in the next few months, it would be appropriate to, I think it would be a good timeline too, from where we're at with the commercial zoning discussions and.
Yeah, well, those are really important. Do you have a sense of the overall timeline? Because the thing is, concerning me is that there are aspects of provisions in the ordinance that have to do with administration. Planning board, the planning board responsibilities and the zoning board responsibilities and how the process works and things like that. Where, there are just errors and omissions that weren't caught in the last revision was made, and we brought those to the attention of the trustees, and we get them clarified at various points in years past before the comprehensive plan. So it's a lot of, and there's still the answer we got at the time was, well, we don't want to just make it isolated changes, because changes we make it require public hearings, and we want to do it all kind of as a package. And the problem with that is we still have glaring little omissions and confusing wording that was not intended.
Related to the residential component?
No.
This goes back even.
This goes to the administration.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if it's still a record. We put together a list of things that we have dealt with, just the purpose of clarity and planning things. Just an example of that is it refers at one point to a streamlined process for site plan that can occur under circumstances specified above. Well, you go above, and there are no circumstances specified.
And I can see exactly how that could happen, being a part of what I've been a part of. I can see how that will happen again.
Sure.
Because it's.
Yeah.
This process is going on over such a long period of time that.
Right.
Forget.
And I can't, I also, I know that there's other components to the work that needs to be done. And I think there's strategic decisions about, how do you break that work up, and when do you submit a current draft of, let's say, just the commercial to the trustees to vote, or do you wait and do a bigger piece because there's
Right.
Industrial.
I'm not thinking of anything that I view as absolutely critical, but there are some ways that for applicants, things could be streamlined and were intended to be streamlined, but it can't be, because there's critical pieces of that equation we left out.
Right, and that's not really like making a change, that's like a mistake that needs to be corrected, so the process can happen. And yeah, I feel like this is something maybe
Yeah.
that we should do, maybe think about revisiting, because, well, you're wondering about the timeline of the comprehensive plan, like how much longer is it gonna take?
Right.
So should we go back and do these things so we can make sure that these processes, because applicants come in, they don't really know what they're supposed to do, and we're just making it more confusing if the wording is not clear.
Yeah, and there are ways, and accepted ways that, are available and if you even look at it, a fairly involved planning board process that, if it has, lots of elements. There are various little sort of escape hatches along the way that allow things to be streamlined. And, there are a couple of those that just kind of got, lost in the equation, last time around. It could have been corrected, should have been corrected. But they're there right now, so what we do is we basically just, work around it. And so my question on the timeline is it's already taken. And these things always do, and I always thought it was incredibly optimistic when I saw the original timeline for this revision. I thought it happened, but then it's not happening.
No, and I
Because
don't
it's
see
very
an end in
long.
sight, so I think
Yeah.
that, it would be to expend a com and then to discuss these
Do you think
things
that
and
the
see.
next step is to get through the commercial stuff and all the related elements,
Mhm.
of which are many, as it will with residential? And then do that as a little package and then move to
The last-
demonstration?
Yeah, the last, there was a discussion of that, at the last meeting, but I did not hear an expectation of a time that might be complete, but, so.
It's a big project.
Yeah.
So,
There's also been, discussions about, you see in a lot of zoning discretion or given to the planning board. You'll have verbiage that's very specific, but then in other instances, you might have some verbiage that then gives the planning board a little bit of input when somebody comes. And so there's conversation about that too, and at the table, I always say we have a great planning board and, this was back when we weren't that busy, and I said, it's been months since I think we could I think we could have, so I say that, but I think there's always that too, that conversation about what input should we have, or how much power should we have when somebody's before us, if they're talking about a design standard or.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of it's defined by state law, planning boards or certain things, something.
Yeah, I read that today. I just was reading that today because I was trying to find out if that junkyard was out of compliance with our code. That's a moot point now. Can we have an action and grant with knowing that there's an active code violation on? That's what I was trying to start to research, but it's a moot point because it's not on the. But do you know that law? Like if there's an existing code violation, can you go ahead and still make an approval related to that?
The code, once it gets to the code level, there's a pretty elaborate enforcement. Process of condemning. Things and requiring.
I mean, that one piece is clearly a junkyard.
Sort of, getting.
Yeah.
That's, it's got its own procedural requirements and puts the terms, so. Yeah.
But Ben's good. I mean, I think he would come and. I think it would be good, so.
He's been good with this time.
I have a meeting next week. Do you want me to ask Ben if he'd be willing to do that? And
Sure, I mean, at an appropriate time.
Yeah.
At a time where, you know.
he feels,
He feels that things are coherent enough.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's no point in coming and not being able to.
right,
Present that.
yeah. So when he feels it would be a good time. Okay.
Most of my understanding from the mayor is that. Having now lived through this process, the recognition of the timing of comprehensive plans, is that this is actually an ongoing and iterative thing. And that probably the CPZRC will never dissolve. It might just continue to work on things, and by the time it's finished, something you realize you should now. Look at the whole thing and get all the feedback and start, I don't know if that's comforting or.
I don't know if it's
To me,
coming.
sort of recognize that that is the process, that if really something wrong, we update it every 5 years. You might just then be in the cycle if you
It's like
go
a
deep
rolling
into
thing.
something, so there isn't this notion of failure to complete, it's completing sections as they come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
Is that?
But then it would be even more to the point that then the things that there's corrections that are hindering process should be corrected right away.
It should be correct.
Rather than, because if it's never going to,
Right, yeah, I do think.
or at least when that portion is done, that, you know, is encompasses.
Sure, it could be like the next package. could
Yeah.
include Not
A
just,
correction to the former.
not just the commercial things, but,
Yeah.
you know, important corrections.
Right, yeah, that,
That are everywhere and, you know, yeah.
just making, again, I know
It
you've
would be
already
good.
done it, like making a list of what are the, what sections are causing issues with process and that making a case to get those corrected.
Yeah,
It's a living document,
yeah.
if that makes it more exciting to print the document.
I don't-
But it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I actually don't know what those corrections are like, what is hindering,
Well,
so that would be interesting. but-
I could, I'll let you in on the one that I was referring to, because I think I can find it really fast. So, yeah, okay. Sure.
Well, you did give us one where there's supposed to be a list of things you're supposed to look at, it's not there.
Oh,
There's that one, yeah.
Here we go, it's, all right, so site plan review procedures. Two B, section 812. Submission of application materials, application for site plan approval should be made to the zoning office. If the project is deemed above the threshold of projects of limited scope as defined above. So it's above, if it's not a project of limited scope, it's more than that. But as defined above, it's not definable.
Right, right.
So what do you don't have projects that are in scope.
I know,
Everyone, fish,
right,
including subdivision.
right,
Yeah, so,
all right.
but it, you know, and that clearly was, there was intent to have
Another
a
paragraph.
fast. a
Yeah,
fast-
right.
You know, uncomplicated.
How long has that been like that?
Since,
123?
it was, no, it's, since, 2012.
Oh, that's.
Yeah,
Okay.
I told you how long.
Okay.
This kind of stuff.
Thank goodness.
But yeah. no.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, somehow it's still pretty fresh. I got efficiencies. No, actually, how it happens. You know,
Sure.
but they happen and then you correct them.
Yeah.
Like we can. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Sounds like it.
You know, I'll.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know we were taking that away from you.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi. Hi.
All right, so you're adjourned and it's 8.
Can you read this? It's, as you wish. I'm gonna look at it, so it's- sorry, it's okay. Oh, yeah, can I?